Okay, so welcome everybody to our Ostara class. This is going to be a class for exploring the energies of the spring equinox, which as we're recording this is coming soon in like a week and a half or so. So we're not quite at that place yet, but we're getting there. And this is of course the moment when the night and day are equal in terms of length, but immediately after the equinox moment, the days become longer than the nights, and we start to move into the bright half of the year. So the bright half of the year is a lot of things. One of the things it is a time to refocus on the body. So during the dark half of the year, which happens after autumn equinox, we're in spirit realm, we're in introversion, we're in meditation a lot of the time, we're in more rest, we're in like more moon season, darker season. And as we move into the bright half, the natural world starts opening up and we start seeing our blooms and flowers and things like that. And we're invited to reconnect with the body. One of the names of the lunation that usually happens in April, the moon cycle that happens in April from the Dakota point of view, is one of my favorite names, which is the moon when the streams again become navigable. So this is kind of what we're moving towards. It's like this feeling of everything having been sort of frozen inside of our bodies. And again, we're not quite there yet, but as we shift from the dark half to the bright half, that's what starts to happen. It's like those stagnant sort of stuck places in our bodies and our spirits have an opportunity to start to flow again. So we're going to do a little bit of meditation today, and I'm going to invite you to think about some intentions and things like that. You're welcome to write them down. You're welcome to ignore them if you want to. And I'm actually going to offer you one more thing sort of in talking land before we go into the inner world. I wanted to share with you some tarot images because, as many of you know, I love tarot, I love the images, and I find that they can be really helpful just for getting sort of the sense of the mood of, whatever it is we're talking about. So bright half of the year, I actually love the Empress for the summer solstice, which is coming. So this is going to be end of June, getting into that really hot season. And here we have this beautiful woman. This is from the Modern Witch tarot deck. She's kind of got this beautiful natural world around her. And actually in this particular image, which I don't think you normally see it this way, but we've actually got some ice, or one way to interpret this is ice that's melting, right? And she's got a heart symbol that's a symbol of Venus. There's sort of this invitation to fertility, which can be literal, but it can also mean the energy of, when your creative ideas start to flow, when your motivation starts to come back, when you feel like you can start creating things. That's what the spring is all about. It's like you've got the energy to go for it. And that's very much what the Empress is about. So I'll just show you the image from the Light Seers deck, which is a newer deck for me. I love this interpretation of the Empress. She's actually pregnant with the world inside of her, which I feel like is a really beautiful metaphor. And again, it's that idea of, fertility, potentially literally, but also metaphorically. It's our ability to create, our ability to change, the potential that we have as human beings. So the feeling that I have for the practice that I want to do today is really getting those streams navigable again, melting that ice, getting things moving and allowing us to shift from the more introverted, darker half of the year to a place where we can engage with the concept of hope, which I know is complex. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we kind of go into the meditation as well. So I just wanted to give you a quick little background on kind of what we're doing. And I'm excited about it, so I feel like I'm talking fast. I think I want to share as well, which is Ostara. What is Ostara? Okay, so just briefly, Ostara is the name of a goddess who is related to the dawn. So if we think about this spring as like that light growing from the horizon, where it's not full day yet, but you can see and feel the light starting to grow and the shift from night to day. So that's kind of the reason this goddess is invoked at this time of Ostara. Ostara itself is like a traditional pagan celebration, and it's still celebrated in kind of neo-pagan Wiccan circles, but many traditions all over the world would have celebrated the spring equinox. I can go on and on about this. Let me keep it short. Ostara is related to Eoster and Eos. Okay, Eos is a Greek goddess of the dawn. Eoster is basically another word for Ostara, and here is Easter. Yeah. So in the Christian tradition that a lot of us are familiar with, it's sort of understood that Easter is, maybe a co-opting of the Ostara celebrations. Maybe it's a syncretism when different religious traditions come together and they kind of join in what they're doing. And Easter is timed according to I think it's the Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. I think that's what it is. So even though it's not on the equinox, it's related to that in terms of when Easter is actually located. So Ostara symbols, pears, colored eggs. Easter symbols, pears, colored eggs, among other things, right? So it's very much like you can kind of see how this tradition actually directly relates to Easter, which some of us are kind of, familiar with celebrating. So, this is a time for, again, I can go on and on about this. I want to keep it short. The metaphor of Easter being about Jesus's death and rebirth. That's what happens to the solar year. At the winter solstice, there's a death of the sun, and the spring equinox is the rebirth of the sun. So it's actually a metaphor that's kind of, with Jesus's story, it's like a microcosm of that larger solar story that we experience every year, and especially every spring. So it's about rebirth and new life and new possibility and hope. Okay, so lots of information just thrown at you. Let's sit with some of it, and then we'll move into our practice. Sound good? Okay, beautiful. So I'll invite you to get comfortable, and I'm going to be seated, and that's sort of how we're going to start our practice as well. But feel free to be in any position that works for you, so we can do a little bit of just kind of integrating all of that information so that it makes sense for who we are and where we are at the moment. And I did send you guys a playlist. You're welcome to start it maybe a little bit later on. So for now, let's just be in kind of the meditative space, and we'll use the music when we start moving. So I'm just going to sit up on a little piece of support. And there are so many themes and meanings that we're working with today. So there's a lot to be working with within an hour. But what I'll invite you to do is place a hand on your lower belly and a hand on your heart. And just start to breathe into these places. And take a moment to get grounded in the earth. And also the land that you are on. Right now I'm on Plains Cree land in Treaty 6 territory. And as we speak, this place is cold and windy and snowy, but there are buds, there is light, there is that hint of spring coming. And our relationship with these energies of the solar year are going to be intimately connected with our experience of the land. So I'll invite you to take a moment to acknowledge the land that you're on and your relationship with it. And that can be historical, cultural, and it's also immediate, it's intimate. And the spring equinox invites us out of our mind and spirit places, which is kind of the higher chakras, if you're familiar with chakra theory. And the bright half of the year is really inviting us a little lower down into our bodies, and specifically the sacral chakra. Okay, so that hand on your lower belly. is going to be around that area of the sacral chakra. It's got this warm orange color to it. This is the source of our creativity. Has a relationship with pleasure and movement in the body, a relationship with the hips. So as you're feeling into this, just notice what that's like to breathe down into this area, what this area feels like for you right now. And your other hand relates to your heart chakra, anahata. And among other things, this is about our relationship with other people, our community, which includes the land, the earth, the trees, the flowers, snow, the wind. The heart connects our bodies to our spirits. And as we move towards this precipice moment of the spring equinox, we have an opportunity to let go of something from the dark season, from the winter time. So if you like, you may want to take a moment to think about something that you were choosing to release. So maybe this is a habit, maybe this is something that happened. Doesn't really matter too much what it is. Just notice your intention to let something go. And if you want to write it down, you're welcome to. You can also just be with it. And I'll share that so much of the spring season is about hope. And hope can be incredibly vulnerable. And so one of the major thing that I'm working on letting go of right now is my bracing around hope, my expecting the worst, my preparing for bad outcomes. I'm offering that to the earth, to the sun, to be melted, the ice to be cracked. And as we move into this bright half of the year, we are moving into the most intense building part of the solar year, the springtime. What would you like to build as the heat of the sun does, as the flowers bud and bloom and grow into fruits? What would you like to invite in? What are you making space for? What can you allow yourself to hope for? And if you'd like, you can write that down. You can stay right here as long as you like. We're going to begin to invite some movement into our bodies. And this could be as simple as rocking side to side or back and forth. If you're not seated, if you're laying down, maybe you're stretching your arms up and wiggling your toes. Maybe you're moving in some other way. And maybe you're exploring some circles or spirals. So right now I'm seated cross-legged. And as I mentioned, the sacral chakra has a relationship with the hips. So if we can get the hips moving, that can help us to make our streams again navigable. It can help us to melt and crack some of that ice in our bones. So just circling around the hips is one way to start doing that. Feel free to let your shoulders move, your head, your neck. And if you're circling one way, try going the other way. And we're going to journey from here towards our hands and knees. And if you'd like to put your playlist on, you're welcome to take a moment to go and hit play and get a little music to help you to sort of get into the groove a little bit. And we're going to keep on working with that intuitive flowing movement on hands and knees. So if cat and cow is most comfortable for you, that's perfect. Just inhaling into a little back bend and exhaling to round the spine. And again, you're welcome to explore those circles, side to side movement, just kind of thinking about breaking up those little stuck places in the body. And one of the most important ways to do this is with the breath. You don't necessarily have to do Ujjayi breath here unless that's comfortable for you, something that you want to do. Okay, and that would just be a nice long inhale and exhale through the nose. And create a little whispering sound. But the last thing I want in this practice is for you to kind of tense up. We're trying to soften, we're trying to open. So if a belly breath works better for you, if exhaling out your mouth works better for you, even making sound, please feel free to do that. That's all going to kind of open things up a little bit. Ujjayi is great, but a lot of its purpose is around stability and strength, and there's a place for that. And it's not that we won't have stability and strength here, but we're trying to open, we're trying to let go of some of those tightly closed gates. Okay, so you can keep doing what you're doing. That's great. You could also come with me into some water wheels. So I'm just bringing my hands a little farther forward. I've tucked my toes under. Sometimes I like to widen my knees a bit. And I'm just rocking back and forth with the spine. So as I curl forward, I'm drawing my belly in. And then I'm letting my heart come through my arms, opening the chest and belly, and bringing the hips back to the heels. So it's a nice sort of wave-like pattern with the spine. But again, don't worry about, what does it look like? Am I doing it correctly? That's not what we're here for. Okay. We're here to open it up. Nice. Okay. And then we'll come to our belly. So next time you come forward, you can lower all the way down. If being on your belly doesn't work for you today, you can stay on your hands and knees or come to seated. Okay, we're just gonna take a couple of our strange cobras. So point the toes, fingertips wide to the right and the left. Press the pubic bone down, lift your heart up as you inhale. And as you exhale, come down. Inhale, rising up. Think of a cobra, a snake, lifting the hood to rise up. And again, optionally add the twist. As you exhale, you can look to the right and dip your left shoulder. Come up through center. Look to the left, you can dip your right shoulder. Come up through center if all that's working for you. One more time each side. And then come up through center, gently release all the way down to the earth. And let's take a moment here. So you can release your arms forward, palms up, forehead to the ground, feet relaxed, just really connected to the land, the earth, the ground for a moment. Whatever it is you're letting go of, think of offering it to the earth, knowing that the earth has the capacity to take it in and transform it into something else. Okay, when that feels complete for you, we can return to hands and knees, or maybe you'd like a moment in child's pose or downward dog. If you feel like you have a little bit more energy, we're just going to take a little pause here. If you're in downward dog, you could pedal your heels out. If you're in child's pose, you could just breathe into your lower back. And if you are in downward dog, pedaling your heels, go ahead and let your hips move from side to side. Beautiful. And then meet me on hands and knees when you're ready. Extend your right leg back, plant the toes, spin your left foot around behind you so that you're coming into gate pose. Okay, the right sole of the foot is going to land on the earth, and you can take your left hand a little bit farther forward. You could even come up onto fingertips so you've got more weight on your leg, okay, or palms fine, and reach your right arm either up or alongside your ear. Lengthen the tailbone, get that nice side stretch. Okay, stay here or see if you can float the right foot up off the ground. The right arm can come up too. And then try bending the back leg, reaching to hold it with the right hand and coming into a little bit of a back bend. Press the foot into the hand, allow the shoulder to roll back, maybe open the throat. Beautiful, inhale, and then gently release the foot and the hand. You're gonna come back to hands and knees and then downward dog. Okay, and then your left leg, so that's the leg that was supporting you, you're gonna send that up to the sky, left leg. And roll the hips open, bend the knee. And then let's circle. So we're gonna inhale, and then as you exhale, bring the knee into the chest, and then open to the left and back up to the sky. If you feel like amping things up a bit today, you could come forward, shoulders over your wrists on the exhale. So you're just adding a little bit of core here. That's totally optional. And then that left foot is gonna come in between the hands. Okay, so if you have blocks, I recommend using them here. You could do fingertips, it's just gonna be a little bit easier on your blocks. We're gonna do this with the back knee lifted if possible, okay? And you're gonna allow the hips to kind of drop and the heart come forward. And then on the exhale, we're gonna straighten the leg, okay? If for whatever reason this doesn't work for you, you can do it with the back knee down, just heart forward, and then the leg straightens on the exhale. Okay, so but they're gonna be essentially the same thing, just a little bit of a different feeling. So follow your breath, take your time. Opening the hip and hamstring. Beautiful. Let's take about one more breath. Amazing. And then we're going to softly step back to downward dog or hands and knees. Okay, if you're in kind of a vinyasa mood, if you've got a lot of energy and you want to work through that, you can take vinyasa here. Okay, so that would be coming forward to plank on or off the knees, little push up or all the way down. Pull the heart through into cobra or upward dog. And then return to downward dog. Then bring your knees down, widen them apart a little bit, toes tucked under if you can. Heart melting pose. So the fingertips come forward, heart melts. Breathe the heart into the earth. You could sway a little side to side. Okay, so you can settle back to child's pose or come forward to your belly. And take a cobra like we did before, fingertips wide. Exhale, return to hands and knees. Okay, if your wrists are starting to get a little tired, please feel free to do this on your fists, okay? Our wrists will get a break after this sequence. So we're gonna take the left leg back, land the toes, spin the right foot open, and reach the left arm up to the sky or alongside the ear. This could also be done on the fingertips. Pointing the tailbone down, taking that lovely side stretch, turning the heart a little bit up to the sky. Nice deep breath, doesn't have to be ujjayi. Okay, and then float that left leg up. Left arm can go up as well. And then you can try bending the back leg and see how it goes to hold on to the foot and open the chest, the quadricep, the shoulder, maybe even tip the ears back a little. Okay, inhale, gently release the foot. We're gonna come back to hands and knees, then downward dog, and the right leg is going to go up to the sky. So that's the knee that was just on the ground. Right leg, okay? Hips open, and bend the knee. And then begin to circle, bringing the knee in, and then open, and back up to the sky. And you can add your core. And again, just notice if you're starting to get kind of rigid with any of this, sort of trying hard, right? That's another thing I could be, I've been thinking about a lot that I could be, really intending to let go of, is just that energy of trying, striving. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes you got to go with the flow. Okay, and then after about 4 of those, we'll step the right foot forward. And grab your blocks again if you have them and want them. And this could be done really with the back knee up or down. Either way, it's going to be very similar. Okay, so inhaling, the hips and heart pull forward. Exhaling, the front leg straightens. If your back leg knee is lifted, I like to flex the front foot. It's optional to do that as well. Just adds a little bit of calf opening as well. But again, don't get too caught up in what it's supposed to look like, okay? We're not looking for rigidity here. We're looking for opening. So you could even close your eyes. You just gotta lean into what feels good for you. Allow it. Maybe one more breath. And then we'll step back again to hands and knees or downward dog. You can take your vinyasa if you want one. Totally up to you. And then return to Anahatasana, the heart melting pose. So the knees will come back down, hands forward, heart melting. If you can get your forehead to the earth, please do. And again, making that offering. Okay, from here, let's come to our bellies. Take that cobra pose once again. And then on your exhale, gently release and return to that pranam, that sort of offering prayer position, completely prone on the earth. So releasing the feet, palms face up, forehead to the earth if you can. Breathe your belly into the ground. Okay, in your own time, slide your hands back to your ribs and make your journey back to downward facing dog. You could do that through a child's pose. You could do it through water wheels. You could just come right up into downward dog. If you're really feeling those vinyasas, go for it. Take another one, that's fine. And then we'll meet at the top of the mat, so you can come into a standing forward bend. Knees as bent as you want them to be. You could rest elbows on thighs or hold opposite elbows, hang down. Especially for today, why not let the feet go a bit wider apart so that you have a little more room to work with, and just kind of sway with the hips or bend one knee at a time. Just kind of checking in with what feels a little sticky in there. And then curl up, leaning back into the heels. Take as many breaths as you'd like to rise up to standing. Fidgeting is welcome. Moving around a little. You can keep your feet nice and wide if they are. Let's take the elbows forward, up, and back. It's a really big, like a wingspan. Yeah. Then do that a couple of times. And I'm kind of including my spine here. I can include my knees too, so I can kind of bend them and then rise up with the elbows, just really nice and loose. I feel like my shoulders and my chest have been so frozen over the last little while, and all I want to do is this, just kind of get them opening. I'm letting those wings out. Let's do about one more. Beautiful. And then soften your arms, kind of nice and wide. Soften your knees, just taking a breath right here. Okay. And walk your feet in so that they're just underneath the hips or so. I'm gonna do a little transition through a balance. We're not gonna hold it too long or anything. So you can pick up your right knee and take your arms open or forward. And then just a nice step back into a warrior one. So the heel lands, okay? Nice and wide with the feet. You can interlace your fingers around behind you. Draw your tailbone down, press that back heel into the earth. Square your hips forward and let your chest gently open. Okay, we're gonna add a little bit of flow here, and this can be very subtle. So it could just be your breath, okay? Or you could exhale and just dip down a little. It could be a centimeter. Inhale, opening up again. Exhale, dipping down. Maybe you're going with your hips here, like all the way down to your thigh, and then pulling back up with your core. So I leave that to you, how far you're gonna go, what feels right for you. No right or wrong here. The only wrong would be if something doesn't feel right for you. If it hurts, we're not looking for that. We'll take about one more. Okay, if it's comfortable for you to stay in the forward position with your fingers still interlaced, please do. If you need to release them, no problem. We're not going to be here for very long. And then softly release your hands and walk them towards the upper right corner of the room, so kind of away from your legs. And let the hips draw back a bit. So it's sort of like that Anahatasana heart melting pose, but with the legs essentially in a warrior one. Okay, you can stay here or experiment with straightening your front leg and just notice how that feels. You can keep reaching out into the right. Lovely. And then softly walk your hands back to the front of your mat and step forward. Feet can be as wide as you want them. Let's roll up. As you roll, circle your wrists. If it's working for you, if it's feeling good, you can take those big wing circles again. Elbows forward, up and back. Just moving the shoulders, moving the chest, moving the knees too. Just loosening it all up. And then soften. Find your breath again. Walk your feet in a little closer just to help you with balance. Pick up your left knee, arms can reach up too, and step back into that warrior one shape. Interlace your fingers. We're gonna do that same thing on the second side. So lifting your heart up, let's just pause for a moment here. And then we'll start to flow, inhaling, and then dip forward some amount. And again, this could just be with your breath. I don't care what it looks like. Okay, maybe you're dipping all the way down into your hips, as if you're dipping your paintbrush into the earth, and then painting the wall and the ceiling with your heart. Last one or so. And then come down and hold. And we're just holding the mudra with the hands for about a breath or so. No rush. And then softly release them and walk your hands over to the upper left corner of the room, sort of pulling your hips back. Feel free to play around with this a little bit until it feels good. And then you might try gently straightening that right leg and just seeing how that feels. Keep pulling the hip a little off to the right. Very little weight in your hands. Lovely. Okay. And then you can bring your hands back to the front of the mat. Softly bend that back leg and step forward again. A nice wide stance is lovely for today. Bend your knees and roll up. You can circle your wrists again. If those wing circles are working for you, you can add them again here. Just these nice big movements. Good, and then let's soften. Keep your feet nice and wide. And I'm going to offer that we do something that's a little bit not very yoga-like. I'm just going to move our hips. And I'm going to give you a few different options for what that could mean. So one is just rocking your hips side to side. Just really getting into this second chakra area. You could try a circle. And again, none of this should hurt. Does not matter what it looks like. And if you're circling, let's try the other way. Good. Okay. And then you can keep working with whatever of that is working for you, or you can try this shimmying essentially. So you can come through center and just soften your knees a little bit. And it's like a little bend and straighten with the knees. So this is from belly dancing. Okay. And the way one of my first teachers described it to me is that if you had a board in front of your knees and you were just trying to tap one at a time, and then you just relax your hips and you let it go like jello. Yeah. So I don't want you to think about what this looks like. Okay, don't worry about it. You're supposed to be jiggling. Okay, that's the point. And just let your belly jiggle. If your shoulders are jiggling too, that's fine. We're not trying to do sort of correct belly dancing or anything like that. We're just trying to shimmy it out. And this is something that I would do sometimes when I felt anxious, without even knowing that a lot of the time, animals who've been through a stressful situation shake to get rid of it. And this is one way of shaking. So just kind of imagine that you're shaking off whatever from the winter is just not working for you anymore, whatever you want to kind of release. Feel free to change where your feet are. Sometimes I like doing this with my feet a little closer together. That's a little more traditional belly dancing, but we're not too worried about that right now. Okay, yeah, feel free to shake your hands too. You can pick up one foot at a time. Sighs are great. Maybe rolling your neck a little. Ooh. Try opening your mouth. We don't necessarily do that in yoga. A lot of the time we have our sort of pursed lips. But it can be really nice to just open the throat a little. Okay, let's take a couple more breaths with this. No rush. And then when it feels right for you, you can just kind of slow down, come back to standing. You don't have to be still, you can. Just kind of feeling the effects of that. Maybe the warmth moving through your body. And if you're noticing any other kind of spontaneous movements that are coming through that, even if it's just circling your wrists or moving from side to side, feel free to add that. If stillness is feeling most right for you right now, that's perfect too. And a couple of you before class were talking about the neck. So let's, if you want to add that in, you could draw your chin down. Just softly roll your head over to one side. Got my knees sort of soft here. Circle back to center and over to the other side. And again, rather than trying to isolate your neck, let your shoulders move with your upper spine, move with your neck so it's nice and loose. And eventually we're going to bring the head down through center, and let's use that to reverse roll down towards the earth. So you can let your shoulders get really soft, bend the knees, and gently roll down to the ground. You can be in that forward bend for a moment. Maybe there's a little more swing or rocking that you want to do. And especially shake your head out. We tend to hold so much tension in that neck. And eventually we'll come down to a seat, and I'd love for you to do this through a squat if you can. So you can take your feet nice and wide, turn the toes out, sink your hips. And maybe your bum's coming right down to the earth. Maybe it's coming down onto a block, or you're here in the sort of traditional squat shape. And let's take this a little more just soft. So you could rock a little bit from side to side, kind of using your hands, just if this feels quite safe for you. No pain in the knees. Sometimes it's nice to actually rock from one foot to the other, especially if it's your heels that are kind of tight in squat. The feet can hold a lot of tension for us as well. And then let's sit right down. If you're not already, give your legs a shake. You can do the windshield wiper. And let's do some cooling down movements, but we're going to keep working with our hips and other things. I'm just going to put my sweater back on because it is -20 with wind chill today. It's not quite spring yet. Soon. Okay, so you can sit up on a little piece of support if you wish. And we're going to take the legs wide. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy, but just open. And I'll mirror you for this part. So you can bring your right heel in. So you've got kind of a one kneed sort of situation going for you here. If your knee is unhappy about this at all, you could put a prop underneath it, and your sit bones should feel even. If that's on the ground, that's fine. You might need to come up a little higher if your sit bones are going a little funny. Okay, flex that left foot, draw the left hand along the leg, and let's take a side stretch, reaching up and over. Often with this one, I like to hold the back of my head so my neck can relax a little bit more, and just opening up my shoulder. If that doesn't feel quite right, your arm could be up, it could be on your hip. And just taking some of those nice deep breaths, thinking about getting longer and softer, not necessarily needing to be further down. Lovely. And then we're going to gently rise up. We're going to keep our legs in this position and turn the chest towards that straight leg. So now it's a slight twist, lifting the heart, and we're going to fold forward any amount. Okay, be gentle here. This should feel good on your lower back. You don't have to go too far. And again, you can think about kind of breathing length into your spine. Exhaling to soften a little bit. And again, notice if you're trying, okay? And there's lots to sort of think about around that energy of trying, but I've noticed for myself or a lot of people I've spoken to, this year has come with a lot of trying really hard to whatever it is. And that energy, it just burns itself out after a while, right? So what would it be like to flow with what's happening rather than try so hard? Lovely. When you're ready, let's gently rise up. Place your right hand to the outside of your right hip, okay? And you can simply take a counter stretch, or you can lean forward, get the sole of your left foot on the ground, come onto your shin. Looks a little bit like gate pose. Not quite, but very similar sort of idea. And then you can sit right down. Bring your legs in front of you, give them a little shake. Let's do that on the other side. So nice and wide, but now with the left heel in. Adjust your prop as you need to. Right hand along the leg, flexing that right foot, reach up and over. And maybe that's up, maybe over, maybe you're holding the back of your skull. And just kind of breathing space, doesn't have to be that ujjayi. Keep that left sit bone rooted down. Okay, and gently pull yourself up. Turn so that your heart roughly faces the foot. Lift up and gently fold over the leg. The two sides might be different. That's totally okay. And again, notice if you're trying, for example, to get your head to your knee. If anything, you would want your heart to your toes. It's kind of a lengthening through the spine. But what if instead of trying anything, we just allowed? What would that feel like? What would be the results of that? What feelings does that idea bring up in you? Okay, let's gently rise back up through center, plant the left hand behind you, and you can simply reach up with the right hand or press up onto your shin, the sole of your foot, taking this little bit of sort of gate pose variation. Also heard star pose, rock star, ballet pose, lots of different names for that one. Then you can gently bring your bum down. Let's release the legs, give them a nice wobble. Okay, and then I'd love for you to lay down on the ground, please. You're gonna hug your knees into your chest and give yourself a little hug, a little rock from side to side. We're gonna prepare to come to rest. And I just want you to notice if there are any movements that your body is still wanting for you. We didn't really do any twisting today. So you might want to do a windshield wiper with your knees and just turn your head in the opposite direction. That's a nice way of just coming into a really gentle, simple twisting motion. If you have something else in mind that you need, if there's something sort of really obvious for you to complete your practice, feel free to do that. I'm just adding a happy baby for myself here. Just giving those hips a little bit more space symmetrically. And then you can release and make your way into Shavasana. So Shavasana is perfect if it's just kind of flat on the ground, feet and legs open. You are more than welcome to set it up in your favorite way. So a bolster underneath the knees is quite softening for the hips. So that might be a really nice way to work here today. If you want to lay in that full pranam on your belly, if that feels really medicinal for you to be on your belly today, feel free. Maybe there's some other way that you want to rest. There's no wrong thing to do here. Shavasana is just intended to be a place where there's as little effort as possible and your system, your body, mind, and spirit can absorb the work that we've done today. Take a moment to notice how you feel right now. Check in with some of the themes that we started our practice with. Maybe there's something you are melting or releasing from the dark season or working on releasing. What are you making space for? What do you want as the sun grows in the spring? What will grow with you? When you're ready, you can deepen your breath and bring some small movements into your toes and your fingers. Reach your arms up over your head. Gather your knees in. Softly roll to one side. Eventually returning to a comfortable seat, perhaps with a hand on your heart and a hand on your low belly. And I would like to take a moment to acknowledge you, all that you've been through in the dark half of the year, and all that you want, all that you hope for as we turn to the bright. Let's honor and acknowledge the long and complex lineage of teachers that is with us in our yoga practice. Honor the sacredness of the land that we practice on. Let's honor each other. Thank you for sharing this Ostara practice with me today.